emerging from the light. So it's that time of year when some plants look great, others not so much. So today what we're going to do is have a look round at, first of all the really struggling plants, and there's some stories behind each one. Started those first because I know everybody likes to see all the things that go wrong, and then we'll have a look at the things that are doing really well in this autumn season. Let's get started. And we are in. So the first section or group of plants that I'm going to show you are in the struggling category. So we're in the grow tent here. If you saw my last video, you'll know what this is all about. But I particularly want to show you one plant, and the reason for that is that it was struggling. See, I wasn't sure what to put it in, which category to put it in. So this is a failing, well, it's not exactly failing now, but it was a failing Begonia arachnoidea. Absolutely loved this when I first got it. Had 2 leaves on it. I had it from, there you go, I repotted it in November 24, so I've had it longer than that. So here's the story. I'll try and make it as brief as possible. It is a stunning species Begonia, if you've ever seen it. Mine isn't stunning. You can see that leaf has partly rotted. It's lost all its colour. I've cut a lot of it off already. It had another leaf which also rotted, but you can see a rather healthy looking rhizome and a brand new leaf. So the potted history of it, pun intended, is that I kept it over the winter. I think I bought it like late one autumn, a couple of years ago, and it actually did really well in here throughout the winter months. And then during the summer it started to decline, and then during the winter it started to perk up again. So having done some research on it in its natural habitat, it's not the temperatures that's the problem. It can go quite low. Obviously it can't take frost, but what it does need is extra high humidity consistently, and that's what it wasn't getting. Even though through our summertime it tends to be high humidity, it wasn't. It was fluctuating because you get a sunny day, all your humidity goes. Now that I've got it in this grow tent, it's a more consistent humidity, and the new leaf has begun to form. But there's a twist to the tail, because I actually potted this a few weeks ago, and I thought, oh, let's up pot it to a bigger pot and get a really big plant. No, it doesn't like that. It likes to be tight in its pot, and nothing was happening. Both leaves that were left, the large ones, the one that's fallen off, were dying, and I could see a tiny little shoot, but it wasn't doing anything. It seemed to be going backwards, even though I had the humidity right, the temperature right, the light hopefully right. The only thing I could think of was that the pot was too large. I've potted it down again. It's now tighter in its pot. Oh, I also really made the media more airy than ever. They do not like to sit in moist media, and as soon as I changed those factors, it started to grow. So I would think kind of struggling one. I'm hoping, because this is so expensive, that it comes back to me very quickly. So next up in the strugglers involves this. A spray bottle of Bug Clear Ultra. Now then, I've used this product for, I can't even remember, it's years, absolutely years that I've used it. Why? Well, because it works and it's systemic. Now, before you all go out buying it, listen to the story first. So this was always in a red bottle, and the picture of the listing on Amazon is also a red bottle, and there's no mention of any change in the product formula until, you can see where this is heading, you buy it, and then I'll just take you over here, mind the tripod. Behold Begonia Griffon with hardly any leaves on it, probably half a dozen leaves. Now this Begonia Griffon, because it's near the doors, and I do have the doors open during the summer even though I have this curtain on, it flaps about, and aphids got in. Now aphids are probably one of your easiest pests to solve, to deal with. On Begonia griffon, they go on the undersides of the leaves. And what happened, and it's happened before Begonia griffon, it seems to be quite susceptible to aphids. Very quickly it covers them and you start to get leaf dieback very, very quickly with aphids, and not really a massive infestation either. So the leaves started to die off. I sprayed it with Bug Clear Ultra, forgot all about it. I've done that plenty of times before, nothing happened. Cut a very long story short, after some to and fro with the makers of this product, it appears that it's a new formula and it's no longer systemic. And as you could see from the bottle, it's no longer in a red bottle. On the listing on Amazon, it still has the red bottle and no mention that the formula's changed, but it simply didn't work. That's how I knew that it had changed. I sprayed the plant. Guess what happened? Nothing. The aphids still continued to spread because I've been spraying the top and they were all underneath, nicely protected. Now, I'm not too worried about Begonia griffon because during the winter anyway, it tends to lose all its leaves. These nice fat rhizomes, which I've just cut an awful lot of them off, there was that many of them. It was too top heavy, falling over, so I've cut a load off just to clean it up a bit. But it normally has a lot more leaves and looks a lot healthier than this at this time of year. So that's what happened to that. I've not really been able to get hold of a similar product. So this one does work, but it's a contact spray. So if you can actually spray it to the parts of the plant that have the pests, you'll get rid of them. But it's obviously not as good as a systemic one in terms of efficiency. I then bought this one, Resolver Bug Clear. Now this one is supposedly systemic, but again, when you actually delve into the specifics, this has a fraction of the systemic capability of what the Bug Clear Ultra used to do. It's like a fraction of a percent. Now, as a professional gardener, I can get hold of a more stronger product, one that works, but they are quite expensive, so I'm going to hold off. We'll try the Resolver Bug Killer, see what that does for now. Hopefully that will work. I know there'll be people out there screaming at me I should be organic, but my argument is, in the greenhouse, what does it matter? I'm not harming anything outside of the greenhouse. I should be able to be as full of chemicals as I like in here, and it doesn't affect the environment, it doesn't affect any insects, any bird life, any plants out of, or bugs out of the greenhouse. All it does is protect my very expensive investments. And I had the same problem with this, had some kind of pest on it. I can't see any spider mites. And by the way, I know you may have, if you've watched my videos before, let me just go digging down here, you may have seen me use a hand lens. Well, you know what? I'm 57 and I'm struggling to use these things, to be honest. You've got to I can't do it with one hand. You've got to put the thing right up to your eye, and then you've either got to get yourself close to the leaf, or you've got to take a leaf off and get that close up to your eye. The shaking and movement, not that I'm shaking a lot, but you know, when it's a strong magnification, the slightest shake will show up. So I'm looking for some kind of digital microscope that is mobile and you can move around. Now I did look, I spent rather a long time looking at them online, but it's just an overwhelm of them. There's just so many of them, I don't know which one to choose. So if anybody's actually used one and can tell me the pros and cons, I would love to hear from you. Now, how many of you remember my beautiful Escananthus? I think it was Hot Flash, something like that. Well, Hot Flash no more, because it's looking decidedly horrendous. I have to say it was neglected. It was up there. We've moved it now. We repotted it, the royal we. I've not actually checked it for bugs, you know. Maybe it's got bugs on it. but it's certainly not looking too great. So that needs a little bit of care and attention, and to be honest, I think it's had it. I think we may well put this over here and give up and grow something else instead. Not really sure what's up with that. If I had one of those digital microscopes, I would look a bit more closely. Maybe when you've gone, I'll get my hand lens out and have another closer look. You can see I've tried, oh, there's a fungus gnat there. You can see I've tried to see if there's any snails in. I've put these slug pellets in. Which brings me to the slug pellets. Now the slug pellets, even though they work really well on the snails, the tiny bush snails, the issue that I have with them is that they then rot and produce a fungus, which looks really unsightly. I don't think it seems to affect the plants. Let me have a look. See this kind of thing? Can you see that in there? So that was once a slug pellet, and now it's just like a heap of fungus. I saw something the other day that said spray it with, and this can work for any kind of fungus that you've got growing on the surface, spray it with hydrogen peroxide. So I came in here last night and I sprayed just these few, and you know what, it does seem to have kind of got rid of the fungus. It does, it seems like it's worked. I sprayed all these that you can easily get to. So maybe that is a solution. Okay, so any of you growing cyclamen, now mine, they're out in leaf, they're about to come into bloom, but you can see this puckering on the leaf, and I get it on at least one every year, and that is classic tarsonomid mite. Now this one has been sprayed, but my issue was, again, I've sprayed it with the contact killer, which should kill them. Apparently they're easy to kill. It's just if they are hiding underneath the leaf, you know, I've got to turn it over and get to the leaves. And this is why it's so important to have a systemic, because yes, it does create the odd mutation, but it's short-lived, it grows out, and then you've got your plant that's not going to spread these things, because they don't just go on to cyclamen. They are otherwise known as cyclamen mites as well, but these tarsonomid mites, these cyclamen mites, do spread to other plants. I can also see some signs of it on my very large cyclamen. Fortunately, plenty of flowers or flower buds coming there. Can you see those buds? So I did repot this one as well. Last year, my problem with this one, because the tuber is so huge, I don't know if you can see it, it was just drying out so really quickly. So I have repotted it, but I know they do like to be tight in the pot, but not so tight that they're not staying moist, or not, you know, they're not getting enough moisture. It was wilting every other day despite me watering it. So I'm hoping in this larger pot, and it already does look like we're going to get more flowers. And the last thing I'm going to show you that's kind of struggled a bit are the various Drosera that I've had. The cephalotus are doing great, they're fine, but the Drosera, well, the king sundew always dies down at this time of year, so that's fine. I expect that'll pop back up. That was repotted last year, but you can see all these empty pots. What seems to be happening to me is that all these fancy Drosera, different various varieties and species and hybrids and whatnot, they die off, and I just end up with the Drosera capensis filling the pot. You can see what's going on. Now, actually, I think I know the reason for this. There's a couple of reasons. One is I'm very lazy in clearing the water out, so the water gets really gunky and horrible. And two is I'm also very lazy at repotting them. I think it's not the same as repotting other kinds of plants. It's a bit more messy. And to be honest, I think, not that I don't like them. I think when they're grown nicely, they can look fantastic. But I think I'm just ready for something else. So what I'm going to do is have a clear out of these. I am going to keep my cephalotus. I still love the cephalotus. They still look amazing. Always do look amazing and very easy to propagate too. but the other Drosera, I might clear them out and make way for something different. So that's all the strugglers in the greenhouse at the moment, and of course this is something that goes on all the time. There's always a load of plants struggling and a load of plants thriving, and that just lines it nicely up for the next part of this video, which will be coming up in a couple of days. Who knows, it might already be up there. Have a check to the link in the description if it's there. If it's not, it's still not uploaded, and we will flip the switch and look at the things that are thriving. And of course that's the best part of this kind of a hobby, is that sometimes you get strugglers and sometimes you get thrivers, and sometimes you can turn those strugglers back into thrivers, and that's what I've done on a number of occasions. So I'll see you over there in part 2.